Hello, it's me talking, from my new Chanel Come to Learn. Today I will explain to you about Photoshop. Let's go. At its core, Adobe Photoshop is the industry standard software for pixel-based, raster, image editing, digital art, and graphic design. Created back in 1987 by brothers Thomas and John Knoll, it has evolved from a simple display utility into a massive creative suite used by photographers, designers, and digital artists worldwide. Here is a simple breakdown of what makes it work and why it remains the go-to tool. The core foundations. Layers and non-destructive editing. Think of layers like stacked sheets of transparent glass. You can tweak colors, add text, or composite multiple photos on separate layers without permanently altering your original image. Selections and masking allows you to isolate tiny details, like a single person in a crowd or fine strands of hair, so you can edit only that specific area without touching the rest of the canvas. Color correction and retouching. Professional grade tools for white balance, spot healing, contrast, and color grading. What it's used for. Digital art painting with custom brushes, drawing, and texture design. Graphic design creating social media graphics, posters, UI mockups, and banner ads. Compositing combining elements from multiple different photos into one realistic scene. The first time I opened Photoshop on my computer, I felt like I was in the cockpit of a fighter jet. Hundreds of icons, dozens of menus, and tools whose names I couldn't even pronounce. And the mistake 90% of beginners make is trying to memorize the function of every single button on that screen. But the developers who created this amazing program didn't build it to be memorized, they built it based on a very simple mental philosophy. If you understand how this philosophy works on your computer screen, you'll discover that all those complex buttons revolve around just three basic principles. Let's close the academic book and explain today the fundamental principle of Photoshop on your computer. On the screen, we see the canvas in the center. An item is dragged and dropped with the mouse. The scene transforms into a 3D model showing how computer work is made up of transparent glass panels stacked on top of each other on the desktop. The first principle you must grasp when sitting in front of your computer screen is, you're not drawing on a single canvas, you're building a glass projection. Imagine your screen as a glass table. At the very bottom, you place a black sheet of paper, on top of it, a transparent glass slide on which you draw a face, and on top of that, a third slide on which you draw glasses. When you look directly at the screen, your eye sees a single, complete image. But your hand, holding the mouse, can move the top slide of glasses and change its position at any moment, without touching a single millimeter of the face or the background. The true power of Photoshop on a computer comes from isolating elements. The beginner merges everything into a single space, becoming a prisoner of their work, while the professional isolates each pixel on a separate slide to control time and depth within their screen. The second principle is why companies pay thousands of dollars to professional designers, safe, or non-destructive, editing. In older paint programs, if you wanted to erase the background of an image, you'd grab an eraser and wipe away pixels. What if you made a mistake and discovered it 2 hours later? Your work was completely ruined and irretrievable. Photoshop on a computer works in a completely different way. It uses a masking system. When you want to hide part of an image, you don't delete it from memory, instead, you cover it with a black mask that prevents the screen from displaying it. The black and white box you see on the computer screen represents the logic of power. White means show this part to the viewer. Black means hide this part without deleting it. If the client asks you to restore the background a week later, with a single click of the mouse, you can revert the mask to white, and the original image is restored completely, as if you hadn't touched it at all. The third and final principle concerns how the graphics card and processor understand what you're doing on your computer. An image isn't a living thing, but rather an array of light cubes, pixels. When you adjust the lighting of a person's image on your computer, the graphics card doesn't know that this is a person's face. It only knows that there are a set of dark squares and another set of light squares. Every adjustment you make is simply a mathematical balance between three things: shadows, the dark areas within the squares; highlights, the very bright areas. A great designer isn't someone who memorizes buttons, but someone who looks at the image on the computer screen and intelligently determines, is the problem a lack of light? Or is it an imbalance in the shadows? Based on that, they move the appropriate cursor. Ultimately, don't let the multitude of menus and buttons on your screen intimidate you. Photoshop on a computer boils down to this three-part philosophy. Separate your elements into layers. Edit with masks so you don't ruin your file. Understand light and shadow within the pixels. If you grasp this philosophy, your screen will become your friend, and all those complex tools will transform into mere instruments for executing your vision. If you'd like to put this philosophy into practice on a computer and build your first design step by step, leave the word computer in the comments, and I'll send you everything you need to get started. Don't forget the like and subscribe. Goodbye.